Commander Lee Jin-ho pressed his hands against the cold metal railing of the observation deck. Through the thick glass windows, space stretched endlessly before him. Stars dotted the darkness like tiny diamonds scattered across black silk. His ship, the Harmony's Edge, moved quietly through the void between worlds. For 300 years, humans had been content to stay in their small corner of the galaxy. They built colonies on peaceful worlds. They studied strange new forms of life. They traded fairly with alien species. While other races fought brutal wars across distant star systems, humans chose a different path. They chose peace, but peace, Jin-ho was learning, did not always choose them back. The bridge doors opened with a soft hiss. Dr. Park Sumi walked toward him, her face grave. She carried a datapad filled with reports from the Outer Rim colonies. The news was not good. "Commander," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "you need to see this." Jin-ho took the datapad and read the first report. His jaw tightened. The Vorthic Empire had been moving through the galaxy like a plague. They conquered peaceful worlds. They enslaved entire species. They stripped planets bare of resources, leaving behind dead rocks floating in space. "How many worlds have they taken?" Jin-ho asked. 47 in the last year alone, Sumi replied. "They move fast. They show no mercy. And now they are getting closer to human space." Jin-ho scrolled through more reports. Each one painted the same picture. The Vorthak were not just conquerors. They were destroyers. They took what they wanted and left nothing but suffering behind. What does the Galactic Council say about this? Jin-ho asked, though he already knew the answer. Datsu-mi shook her head. They dismiss our concerns, the ancient species that control. The Council think humans are too new, too young to understand galactic politics. They say the Vorthic expansion is just the natural order of things. Jin-ho felt anger rising in his chest, but he pushed it down. Humans had learned long ago to control their emotions. It was one of the reasons they had survived and thrived among the stars. The bridge doors opened again. Captain Kim Dae-yoon entered, her uniform crisp and her expression serious. She held an encrypted message pad in her hands. "Commander, this just came from Earth Command," she said. "Priority Alpha." Jin-ho took the message pad and entered his security. Codes. The message that appeared made his blood run cold. 3 colonies have gone dark, Dae-yoon said quietly. New Seoul Bazan Station and the research outpost on Jeju Prime. No distress signals. No final transmissions, just silence. Jin-ho read the details. The last automated probe had detected Vorthic warships in orbit around the dead worlds. The colonies had not even had time to call for help. "How many people?" Jin-ho asked. 50,000 on New Seoul, 20,000 on Bazan Station, 5,000 researchers on Jeju Prime. Dae-yoon's voice was steady, but Jin-ho could see the pain in her eyes. 75,000 humans. Men, women, and children who had been living peaceful lives on the frontier. Scientists who had been studying alien plants and animals. Farmers who had been growing food for other colonies. Families who had been building homes among the stars. All gone. Jin-ho handed the message pad back to Yoon. He walked to the main display screen and brought up a map of human space. The 3 lost. Colonies appeared as red dots on the edge of their territory. Beyond them lay the expanding darkness of Vorthic space. "Sir," Sumi said softly. "There is something else you should know." Jin-ho turned to face her. "What?" "I have been studying Vorthic military records, their expansion pattern, their tactics." Sumi paused, choosing her words carefully. "They think humans are weak." Jin-ho raised an eyebrow. "Weak?" "They see our 300 years of peaceful exploration as evidence that we cannot fight. In their reports, they call us the soft species. They believe we will surrender rather than face them in battle." Dae-yoon stepped forward. "They have no idea what they are dealing with, do they?" Sumi shook her head. "None of the alien species understand humans. They think our choice to be peaceful means we are unable to be anything else. They do not realize that peace has always been a choice for us, a choice we can change." Jin-ho walked back to the observation windows. He looked out at the stars and thought about the 75,000 people who would never see them again. He thought about the Vorthak commanders who had ordered their deaths. He thought about the alien species who dismissed human concerns as unimportant. They had all made the same mistake. They had confused choice with capability. "Da, Yun," Jinho said without turning around. "Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we need to activate the dormant protocols." Yun's eyes widened. "Sir, those protocols have not been used in 3 centuries. "I know," Jinho replied. "But 3 centuries ago, humans were just beginning to explore the galaxy. We were learning about alien species and trying to find our place among the stars. We chose to be peaceful because we wanted to build something better than the endless wars we saw around us." He turned to face his officers. "But we never forgot how to fight. We just chose not to." Sumi looked confused. "What dormant protocols?" Yun answered her. "Before humans spread across the galaxy, Earth's leaders made a decision. They would try peace first. But if peace failed, if humanity was threatened with extinction, they would activate systems that had been built but never used. Weapons that had been designed but never deployed. Strategies that had been planned but never implemented." Jinho nodded. "For 300 years, those systems have been waiting. Hidden on every human world, built into every colony ship, carried by every exploration vessel. Even this ship has capabilities that our own crew does not know about." He walked to the communication console and entered a series of codes that he had memorized but never hoped to use. "The Vorthak think they are dealing with weak prey," Jinho said as he worked. "The Galactic Council thinks humans are too young and inexperienced to matter. They are both about to learn something important about our species." The console beeped softly. A single word appeared on the screen. "Confirmed. What are they going to learn?" Sumi asked. Jinho looked at her with eyes that suddenly seemed much older. "They are going to learn that humans have never been weak. We have only been sleeping. And now they have given us a very good reason to wake up." In the depths of space, something ancient and terrible began to stir. The sleeping giant was opening its eyes. Agent Choi Min-soo adjusted his breathing mask and checked his disguise one final time. The alien clothing felt strange against his skin, but it would help him blend in on Keth Prime. The border world was known for its black markets and slave auctions. It was also the perfect place to gather intelligence on Vorthak operations. Min-soo had volunteered for this mission because he spoke several alien languages fluently. For 15 years, he had worked as a cultural exchange officer helping humans understand alien customs. Now those same skills would serve a darker purpose. The transport ship landed with a heavy thud on the spaceport platform. Min-soo joined the crowd of aliens disembarking from the vessel. His false identity papers identified him as a trader from the Outer Rim. Looking to buy exotic goods for wealthy collectors, the streets of Keth Prime were crowded and noisy. Aliens of dozens of species moved through the narrow passages between buildings. The air smelled of strange spices and industrial chemicals. Overhead, advertising signs flickered in languages Min-soo had never seen before. He made his way toward the market district, following directions he had memorized before leaving human space. The Vorthak slave market was located in the old warehouse section of the city. It operated openly because slavery was legal on Keth Prime. The first thing Min-soo noticed was the smell. It was the smell of fear and despair mixed with unwashed bodies and poor sanitation. The second thing he noticed was the cages. Row after row of metal cages lined the warehouse floor. Inside each cage were beings from across the galaxy. Men and children of species Min-soo recognized and others he had never seen before. All of them were prisoners. All of them were being sold like animals. Min-soo forced himself to walk calmly through the aisles. He pretended to examine the prisoners with the cold interest of a potential buyer. Inside, his heart was pounding with rage. In one cage, he saw a group of Altarian children. They could not have been more than 5 years old in human terms. Their large eyes were filled with tears as they huddled together for comfort. A Vorthik trader was explaining to another buyer how young slaves were easier to train. In another cage, an elderly being from a species Minsu did not recognize sat alone. The creature's skin was covered with scales that had lost their shine from malnutrition. It stared at nothing, its spirit clearly broken. Minsu moved deeper into the warehouse. The cages seemed to go on forever. Thousands of beings from dozens of worlds, all trapped and waiting to be sold to the highest bidder. He activated the recording device hidden in his jacket. Every second of this horror needed to be documented. The galaxy needed to see what the Vorthik Empire really was. As he recorded, Minsu listened to the conversations around him. The Vorthak traders spoke openly about their plans. They had no reason to hide their intentions from potential customers. The soft worlds near human space will be easy targets, one trader was saying to his companion. The humans have no real military. They will surrender without a fight. How many humans do you think we can capture? The other trader asked. Millions. Their colonies are poorly defended. We can take entire worlds before they even know we are there. Minsu kept walking, but his hands were clenched into fists. The Vorthak were already planning to enslave his people. They spoke about human children the same way. They spoke about livestock. He reached the end of the warehouse and found the most disturbing sight yet. A special section had been set up for what the signs called premium specimens. These were beings from species known for their intelligence or special abilities. In the center of this section was a small cage containing 3 human children. Minsu's blood turned to ice. The children were from one of the lost colonies. A girl who looked about 10 years old sat with her arms around 2 younger boys. They were dirty and scared, but alive. The girl looked up as Minsu approached her cage. For a moment, their eyes met. She seemed to recognize that he was human too, despite his disguise. Hope flickered in her expression. Minsu wanted to tear the cage apart with his bare hands. He wanted to grab the children and run, but he forced himself to stay calm. If he revealed himself now, they would all die. Instead, he walked to the Vorthak trader, who was managing this section of the market. Interesting specimens, Minsu said in the trader's language. The Vorthak looked at him with multiple eyes that gleamed with greed. Yes, these are very rare. Humans are usually too isolated for us to capture, but we got lucky during our recent expansion. How much? Minsu asked, though every word felt like poison in his mouth. These 3? 2 million credits each? Humans are excellent servants once they are properly trained. Very intelligent, very adaptable. Minsu nodded as if considering the price. I may be interested, but I would need to see proof that they are genuine humans. The trader activated a datapad and showed Minsu the children's genetic scans. They were definitely human. The scans also showed where they had been captured. New Soul Colony. We expect to have many more soon, the trader continued. My people are planning major operations in human space. These soft beings will make excellent slaves. Minsu completed his transaction, pretending to place the children on hold for future purchase. He made arrangements to return the next day, with payment. Then he left the warehouse as quickly as he could without seeming suspicious. Once he was safely back at his transport ship, Minsu transmitted everything he had recorded to human intelligence networks. The images and audio files would reach Earth Command within hours. But Minsu was not done. He had 3 human children to rescue and a slave market to destroy. For the first time in 3 centuries, a human agent was about to break the rules of peaceful exploration. Minsu opened a hidden compartment in his ship and removed equipment he had hoped never to use. Weapons that had been designed by human engineers but never tested in combat. Explosives that could level buildings without harming the people inside them. As he prepared for his mission, Minsu thought about what he had seen in the warehouse. The suffering of thousands of innocent beings. The casual cruelty of the Vorthak traders. The 3 human children waiting in their cage for someone to save them. The galaxy was about to learn something important about humans when they chose to be peaceful. They could build wonders among the stars. But when evil threatened the innocent, They could become something else entirely. Something the galaxy had never seen before, something that would change everything. The first stirring had begun. Lieutenant Colonel Oh Sung-jin crouched in the darkness between two storage containers. Around him, 11 other humans waited in perfect silence. They had been watching the Vorthik forward base for 3 days, learning its patterns and weaknesses. The base sat on a barren moon at the edge of human space. It served as a staging area for raids into human territory. Intelligence reports showed that the next attack wave would launch from here in 6 hours. Oh Sung-jin checked his equipment one final time. The weapons his team carried looked simple compared to the energy cannons and plasma rifles used by other galactic armies. But these weapons had been designed specifically for human hands and human tactics. Tiger Team report, he whispered into his communication device. Tiger 1 ready, came the first reply. Guards eliminated. Entrance secured. Tiger 2 ready, came the second. Power grid located, charges placed. One by one, his team members reported their positions. For the past hour, they had been moving through the base like ghosts. The Vorthik guards had not seen them coming. This was the first human military operation in 300 years. Oh Sung-jin felt the weight of history on his shoulders. Everything his species had learned about warfare during their peaceful centuries would be tested in the next few hours. All teams begin Phase 2, he commanded. The assault began not with explosions or gunfire, but with silence. Human soldiers moved through the base corridors without making a sound. They used shadows and blind spots that the Vorthak had never noticed. They exploited weaknesses in alien psychology that no other species understood. Oh Sung-jin led his team toward the command center. They encountered their first group of Vorthik guards at a security checkpoint. The aliens were armed with advanced energy weapons and protected by personal shields, but they were not prepared for human tactics. The first guard died before he knew he was under attack. Oh Sung-jin had approached from an angle the alien's eyes could not see. The second guard turned to face the threat, but found himself staring at empty air. The human had already moved to a new position. Within 30 seconds, all 6 guards were neutralized. Not one of them had managed to sound an alarm or fire a shot. Command center secured, Oh Sung-jin reported. Beginning data extraction. His technical specialist, Sergeant Lee Hyo-jin, connected her equipment to the Vorthak computer systems. The aliens had protected their networks with encryption they believed was unbreakable. They had not counted on human creativity. I'm in, Hyo-jin announced after only 2 minutes. Downloading everything. While she worked, Oh Sung-jin studied the tactical displays. The base contained over 300 Vorthik soldiers and 50 combat vehicles. His team of 12 humans had infiltrated the entire facility without being detected. Sir, Hyo-jin said urgently, you need to see this. She had accessed the base's mission files. The next raid was not targeting a military installation or a strategic resource. It was targeting a human school colony with 10,000 children. Oh Sung-jin felt something cold and terrible settle in his chest. The Vorthak were not just planning to kill human children. They were planning to capture them for the slave markets. Change of plans, he announced to his team. We are not just destroying this base, we are sending a message. Over the next hour, Oh Sung-jin's team moved through the facility with surgical precision. They disabled weapon systems, sabotaged vehicles, and trapped Vorthak soldiers in their own barracks. Every action was calculated not just to neutralize the threat, but to demonstrate human capabilities. The Vorthak finally realized they were under attack when their main power grid went offline. Emergency lights flickered on throughout the base. Alarms began to sound, but it was already too late. Oh Sung-jin stood in the main communications room, broadcasting a message on all Vorthik military frequencies. Behind him, his team had arranged captured Vorthak weapons in a precise pattern that spelled out a single word in their language. Justice. Attention Vorthak Empire, Oh Sung-jin said calmly into the communication device. This is Lieutenant Colonel Oh Sung-jin of the Human Defense Force. Your forward base has been neutralized. Your soldiers are alive but disarmed. Your next raid will not happen." He paused to let his words sink in across the enemy communication network. For 300 years, humans chose peace. We explored the galaxy, we studied alien cultures. We tried to be good neighbors. You mistook our choice for weakness. You decided to test us by murdering our people and enslaving our children. Oh Sungjin gestured to the displays showing the captured base. This base was defended by 300 soldiers with advanced weapons and shields. It was taken by 12 humans in 6 hours, no human casualties, no collateral damage. We did not come here to conquer or destroy. We came here to show you what human justice looks like. The transmission was being recorded by Vorthak intelligence systems across their empire. It would be analyzed by their military commanders and government leaders. They would try to understand how 12 humans had defeated an entire military base. You have 48 hours to withdraw from all human territory, Oh Sungjin continued. You will release every human prisoner in your custody. You will pay compensation to the families of those you have murdered. If you refuse, you will learn why humans spent 3 centuries studying warfare while pretending to be peaceful. He ended the transmission and turned to his team. Equipment check. We have 17 more bases to visit before dawn. Sergeant Hyojin looked surprised. 17 more? Sir, there are only 12 of us. Oh Sungjin smiled grimly. That was before the awakening protocol went active. Check your communication devices. Hyojin activated her personal communicator and gasped. The display showed dozens of green dots appearing across the tactical map. Human teams were activating throughout the sector. How many teams are operational? She asked. Every human military unit that has been dormant for 3 centuries, Oh Sungjin replied. Every sleeper agent, every hidden weapons cache, every secret protocol that was designed but never used. He looked around at his team. These 11 soldiers had just accomplished something unprecedented in galactic history. They had defeated a superior force using nothing but human ingenuity and determination. The galaxy is about to discover what humans really are, Oh Sungjin said. We are not conquerors, we are not destroyers. We are protectors, and we have been sleeping for far too long. Outside the captured base, the first human warships in 3 centuries were dropping out of hyperspace. The awakening had begun. Major Kang Ji-woo stood on the bridge of the human assault ship Thunder's Voice as it approached the enslaved world of Kelros 3. Below them, millions of beings from dozens of species lived in chains under Vorthak rule. The planet's surface was scarred with strip mines and slave camps. Intelligence reports showed that 15,000 humans were imprisoned on the planet's surface. They had been captured during the initial Vorthak raids and were being used as forced labor in the mining operations. Major, his communications officer reported, we are receiving surrender offers from 3 Vorthak commanders on the surface. They want to negotiate. Kang Ji-woo studied the tactical display. The Vorthak garrison consisted of 5,000 soldiers, 200 combat vehicles, and orbital defense platforms. By traditional military standards, it should have been a difficult target, but humans no longer fought by traditional standards. Tell them there will be no negotiations, Kang-woo replied. They had their chance to choose peace. Now they face justice. The liberation of Kelros 3 began at dawn. Human dropships descended through the planet's atmosphere like falling stars. Each ship carried a small team of soldiers equipped with weapons that seemed almost primitive compared to Vorthak technology. The Vorthak defenders prepared for a conventional assault. They positioned their energy cannons to cover the landing zones. They deployed their shield generators to protect key facilities. They followed standard military doctrine that had served them well in hundreds of previous campaigns. They were not prepared for human warfare. The first indication that something was wrong came when their communication systems failed, not destroyed by weapons fire, but quietly turned against them by human electronic warfare specialists. Vorthak commanders found themselves receiving false orders and contradictory information. The second indication came when their automated defense systems began targeting their own forces. Human hackers had infiltrated the base computers and reprogrammed the security protocols. Suddenly, Vortex soldiers found themselves under attack by their own defensive turrets. Major Kang Zhiwu led his assault team through the largest slave camp on the planet. The Vortex guards had expected a frontal assault and had positioned themselves accordingly. Instead, the humans came from underground. For 300 years, humans had been mapping every world they visited. They knew about cave systems and underground rivers that the Vorthak had never bothered to explore. They emerged from tunnels that the aliens did not even know existed. The first guard post fell in 30 seconds. The Vorthak soldiers never saw their attackers coming. Human soldiers moved with a precision that seemed almost supernatural to the watching slaves. Targets neutralized, reported Corporal Nam Si Yan. Slave barracks secured. No civilian casualties. Kang Zhiwu moved deeper into the camp. Around him, thousands of enslaved beings watched in amazement as their captors fell one by one. The humans did not kill indiscriminately. They struck with surgical precision, eliminating threats while protecting the innocent dot in the camp's administrative center. Kang Zhiwu found the records he was looking for. Files showing where every human prisoner was being held. Medical reports on their condition, and shipping manifests showing which ones were scheduled to be sold at the next slave auction. The rage that filled his chest was cold and controlled. This was not the hot anger that led to mistakes. This was the focused wrath of a species that had chosen to protect the weak and punish the wicked. All teams' priority target located, he announced. Building 7 contains the human prisoners. Exercise extreme caution. The rescue operation took 6 hours. Human soldiers moved through the prison complex like shadows, neutralizing guards and freeing prisoners without triggering the facility's self-destruct systems. Every human captive was recovered alive, but the most important moment came when Kang Zhiwu found the 3 children that Agent Choi Min-soo had reported from the slave market. The girl who had looked at him with hope was still alive. Her 2 younger companions were weak but breathing. "You came for us," she whispered as Kang Zhiwu cut through the chains holding her. "We will always come for our people," he replied. "That is what humans do." By sunset, the entire Vorthak garrison had been defeated. Not destroyed in a bloody battle, but systematically dismantled by human tactical superiority. The occupation forces found themselves disarmed and surrounded. Their equipment captured and their commanders in custody, the freed slaves gathered in the camp's main courtyard. Beings from dozens of species looked up at their human liberators with wonder and gratitude. Many of them had been imprisoned for years. Some had been born in captivity and had never known freedom. Kang Zhiwu addressed them through translation, devices that converted his words into dozens of languages. "You are free," he announced. "The Vorthak occupation of this world is over. Human ships will transport you to safe worlds where you can rebuild your lives. Those who wish to stay and reclaim your homeworld will have our protection while you do so." An elderly Altarian stepped forward from the crowd. His scales were dull from malnutrition, but his eyes burned with gratitude. "Why do you help us?" he asked. "We are not your people. This is not your world." Kang Zhiwu looked out at the thousands of freed slaves. He thought about the 3 human children who were now safe. He thought about the 15,000 human prisoners who would soon see their families again. He thought about the choice his species had made 3 centuries ago to be protectors rather than conquerors. "Because that is who we are," he replied. "Humans do not stand by and watch the strong abuse the weak. We do not ignore suffering because it is convenient. We chose long ago to be guardians of justice in this galaxy." He gestured to the human soldiers around him, men and women who had risked their lives to free strangers from a dozen different species. The Vorthak believed that might makes right. They thought they could take whatever they wanted because they were strong enough to take it. They were wrong. Strength without justice is just brutality. Power without compassion is just tyranny. The crowd of freed slaves began to cheer. The sound echoed across the scarred landscape of Kelros III, a world that had known only oppression. for so long that many had forgotten what freedom sounded like. Above them, more human ships were arriving. Medical vessels to treat the sick and wounded. Transport ships to carry refugees to safety. Construction ships to help rebuild what the Vorthik had destroyed. The liberation of Kelros III was complete. But it was only the beginning. Across the galaxy, 50 human task forces were conducting similar operations. The sleeping giant had awakened, and its wrath was both divine and terrible. Commander Li Jinho walked through the great hall of the Galactic Council chambers. The massive room was designed to make visitors feel small and insignificant. Towering pillars reached toward a ceiling lost in shadows. Ancient alien artifacts lined the walls, reminders of civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for millions of years. But today, Jinho did not feel small. Behind him walked a delegation of human officers and diplomats. Around them, the representatives of dozens of alien species watched with barely concealed fear and amazement. 6 months had passed since humanity had awakened from its peaceful slumber. In that time, the Vorthik Empire had been completely destroyed. Not conquered or absorbed, but dismantled with surgical precision. Their military had been defeated. Their government had surrendered. Their slave markets had been shut down forever. The council chamber fell silent as Jinho reached the speaker's platform. Above him, the ancient beings who had ruled galactic politics for eons looked down with expressions he had never seen before. Respect mixed with uncertainty. Fear tempered by curiosity. The council speaker, a being whose species had controlled galactic trade for 10,000 years, activated the translation systems. "The emergency session will come to order," the speaker announced. "Commander Jinho of the human species will address the council regarding recent military actions in the outer rim territories." Jinho stepped forward. 6 months ago, these same beings had dismissed human concerns about Vorthik expansion. They had called humanity too young and inexperienced to understand galactic politics. They had suggested that humans should accept the natural order of things. Now they waited in silence for him to speak. "Honored representatives," Jinho began, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. "I come before you not as a conqueror but as a protector. Not as someone seeking to dominate but as someone committed to justice." He activated a holographic display that showed the current state of former Vorthik space. Where once there had been slave camps and strip mines, now there were refugee centers and reconstruction projects. The Vorthik Empire enslaved 43 species across 200 worlds. They murdered billions of innocent beings. They treated entire civilizations as nothing more than resources to be harvested and consumed. The display showed before and after images from the liberated worlds. The contrast was stark. Devastation had been replaced by hope. Oppression had been replaced by freedom. When we brought evidence of these crimes to this council 6 months ago, we were told that such things were the natural order of the galaxy. We were advised to accept that the strong prey upon the weak. We were dismissed as naive newcomers who did not understand how the universe really works. Several council members shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Jinho could see recognition in their eyes. They remembered their own words being turned back on them. "The council was wrong," Jinho continued. "There is nothing natural about slavery. There is nothing acceptable about genocide. There is nothing inevitable about the strong oppressing the weak." He gestured to Captain Ru Yunji, who stepped forward with a datapad containing detailed evidence files. "Captain Ru will present documented proof of Vorthik war crimes, testimony from survivors, records recovered from their military computers, video evidence of atrocities committed across their empire." For the next hour, Ru presented the evidence to the assembled delegates. The images were difficult to watch. The testimonies were heartbreaking. The scale of suffering was almost incomprehensible. When she finished, the council chamber was completely silent. Several alien representatives were visibly shaken by what they had seen. Others looked ashamed that they had known about these crimes and done nothing to stop them. Jinho stepped forward again. "This evidence raises uncomfortable questions for every member of this council. How many of you traded with the Vorthik Empire? knowing they use slave labor? How many of you purchased goods that were produced by kidnapped children and imprisoned families? How many of you looked the other way because it was profitable to do so? The silence stretched on. No one answered his questions, but everyone knew the answers. Humanity has reached a decision, Jinho announced. We cannot return to our peaceful isolation knowing what we now know about the galaxy. We cannot pretend that slavery and genocide are acceptable because they happen far from our borders. We cannot ignore the suffering of innocent beings just because they belong to different species. He paused to let his words sink in. From this day forward, humanity declares itself the protector of all sentient beings in this galaxy. We will not seek to rule or control other species. We will not impose our government or our culture on anyone. But we will no longer allow the strong to prey upon the weak without consequence. General Bei Haiyansu stepped forward and placed a formal document on the council's central table. This document establishes the Human Protectorate, Jinho explained. Any species that is threatened by slavery, genocide, or conquest may request human protection. We will respond to such requests with whatever force is necessary to preserve justice and protect the innocent. The council speaker leaned forward. And if we refuse to recognize this protectorate? What if we declare human military actions to be acts of aggression against the established galactic order? Jinho met the ancient being's gaze without flinching. Then you will learn what happened to the Vorthic Empire. The choice is yours. You can accept humanity's role as protector of the weak, or you can stand with those who prey upon the innocent. He gestured to the evidence displays that still showed the horrors of Vorthic rule. But understand this, humanity will never again stand by and watch while evil goes unpunished. We have seen what lurks in the darkness between stars. We have chosen to become the light that drives the darkness away. The council fell into heated debate after Jinho finished speaking. Representatives from dozens of species argued in languages that ranged from musical tones to electronic pulses. Some supported the human position. Others feared what human military power might mean for the existing order, but in the end, the vote was unanimous. Not because every delegate agreed with humanity's decision, but because every delegate understood what would happen if they opposed it. The Human Protectorate was officially recognized by the Galactic Council. Humanity had become the galaxy's enforcer of justice. As Jinho left the council chambers, he thought about the long journey that had brought his species to this moment. 300 years of peaceful exploration, 6 months of terrible awakening. And now, an unlimited future as guardians of the innocent. The sleeping giant had not only awakened, it had found its purpose. Behind him, the representatives of ancient civilizations began the difficult process of adapting to a new reality. The galaxy had a new guardian, and that guardian would not be ignored or dismissed. The age of unchecked oppression was over. The age of human justice had begun. 5 years had passed since humanity's awakening. And Ambassador Park Young-ho stood in the center of New Haven Station, watching the daily miracle of galactic cooperation unfold around him. The massive space station orbited a star at the edge of what had once been Vorthac space. Now it served as the headquarters of the Human Protectorate. The station's corridors bustled with activity. Beings from dozens of species worked together on projects that would have been impossible under the old galactic order. Former slaves had become engineers, teachers, and leaders. Children who had once lived in cages now played together in the station's parks and schools. Park Young-ho made his way to the Central Command Center, where Director Lim Soo-jin was coordinating the latest mission of the Galactic Justice Corps. The Corps had grown from a small human organization into a galaxy-wide network of investigators and peacekeepers. Status report, Park Young-ho requested as he entered the command center. Lim Soo-jin looked up from her displays. We have received 17 new requests for assistance this week. 12 are routine trade disputes that our mediation teams can handle. 3 are requests for protection from pirate raids. 2 are potential slavery operations that require immediate investigation. She highlighted 2 star systems on the main display. The Corvani system has reports of forced labor camps. Long-range sensors confirm industrial activity but no communication. Signals from the planetary surface. The other situation is in the Talon sector, where an entire species has gone silent after requesting help from their neighbors. Park Young-ho studied the tactical information. Both situations had the hallmarks of species in distress, but they required different approaches. Dispatch Colonel Song Min-ho's rapid response fleet to the Corvani system, he decided. Send a diplomatic team to the Talon sector first. If they confirm a crisis, Song's people can respond within 6 hours. This was how the galaxy worked now. Problems were identified quickly and addressed before they could grow into larger conflicts. The mere knowledge that human forces could respond anywhere in the galaxy within days had changed the behavior of potential aggressors. Sujin nodded and began issuing orders to her teams. As she worked, Park Young-ho reflected on how much had changed since humanity's awakening. The old galactic order had been based on the idea that might makes right. Powerful species dominated weaker ones. Ancient civilizations controlled trade and politics, while younger species were expected to accept whatever scraps they were given. Justice was something that happened only when it was convenient for those in power. The new order was different. It was based on the principle that all sentient beings deserved protection from oppression and exploitation. The human protectorate did not rule other species, but it guaranteed their right to exist in freedom and dignity. "Sir," reported Communications Officer Kim Woo-jin, "we are receiving a priority transmission from Dr. Han Se-jin on Earth. She says it's about her xenological research project." Park Young-ho accepted the transmission. Dr. Han Se-jin appeared on the main screen, her expression excited but serious. "Ambassador," she began, "my team has completed our analysis of galactic evolutionary patterns. The results explain why humanity has been so effective as a peacekeeping force." She activated a complex diagram showing the evolutionary paths of different species across the galaxy. Every major galactic civilization evolved to fill a specific ecological niche, Dr. Han explained. The Altarians became master traders because their home world required complex resource management. The Corvani became brilliant engineers because they lived in harsh environments that demanded technological solutions. The Vorthak became aggressive predators because they evolved on a world where only the strongest survived. The diagram showed dozens of other examples. Each species had become highly specialized in one particular area of development. "But humans are different," Dr. Han continued. "We are the only known species that maintain perfect balance between intellectual, physical, and technological development. We did not specialize in any one area. Instead, we became adaptable to any situation." Park Young-ho studied the evolutionary chart. "What does this mean for our role in the galaxy?" "It means that humans are not just another species among many," Dr. Han replied. "We are evolution's answer to the chaos of existence. While other species became highly efficient at specific tasks, humans became highly efficient at everything. That is why we can understand alien psychology better than aliens understand each other. That is why we can adapt our tactics to any enemy. That is why we can bring justice to situations that seemed hopeless to everyone else." The implications were staggering. Humanity had not become the galaxy's protector by accident or through superior technology. They had become protectors because that was what they were evolutionarily designed to be. "There is more," Dr. Han added. "Our research suggests that the galaxy has been waiting for a species like humanity for millions of years. The constant cycle of oppression and conflict that dominated galactic history was not sustainable. Eventually, someone had to emerge who could break that cycle." Park Young-ho ended the transmission and walked to the station's main observation deck. Through the transparent aluminum windows, he could see ships from dozens of species coming and going from the station's docking bays, trade vessels bringing goods to market, medical ships carrying aid to distant worlds, diplomatic transports bringing representatives to peace negotiations. 5 years ago, most of these species had been enemies or strangers. Now they worked together as part of a galaxy-wide community dedicated to mutual protection and prosperity. A soft chime indicated that Colonel Song Min-ho was requesting communication from his flagship. "Ambassador," Song's voice crackled through the communication system, "the Corvani situation has been resolved. We found 3 forced labor camps with approximately 50,000 prisoners from 12 different species. The camps have been shut down, the prisoners freed, and the operations leaders are in custody." "Casualties?" Park Young-ho asked. "None. Among the prisoners. The guards surrendered when they realized they were facing human forces. Apparently our reputation for precision has spread." Park Young-ho smiled. This was exactly how the new galactic order was supposed to work. Swift response to injustice, minimal violence, maximum protection for the innocent. "What about the Talon sector situation?" he asked. "Diplomatic team reports that the Talons were not in distress," Song replied. "They were conducting a religious ceremony that required a period of complete silence. They are grateful that someone checked on them, but no intervention was needed. Better to respond to a false alarm than to ignore a real crisis." That had become one of the fundamental principles of the Human Protectorate. As Park Young-ho returned to the command center, he thought about the future. Humanity had awakened from its peaceful slumber to become the galaxy's guardian, but that awakening was not an ending. It was a beginning. Somewhere in the vast darkness between stars, new threats were always emerging. New species would discover space travel and need guidance. New conflicts would arise that required human intervention. The work of protecting the innocent would never be finished, but humanity was ready for that challenge. They had learned to balance strength with compassion, power with justice, and vigilance with hope. They had become what the galaxy needed them to be. The sleeping giant had awakened not as a conqueror, but as a protector. And in the endless depths of space, that protection would endure for as long as there were beings who needed it. The age of human guardianship had begun, and it would last forever.